Hello and welcome to Kankakee Podcast, where we talk about the people and places of Kankakee County. I'm Jake Lamore, and this episode we are talking to a member of an alternative rock band that originally formed in Bradley in 2005, and they released two EPs around that time in the 2000s. One was called Leave All the Pretty Things Alone, and then Backseat Classic. And this all happened before they separated in 2008. And now in June of 2022, they reunited, and they're currently recording their debut full-length album, Waiting for a Revival. The first single is Glasswater Pill Swallow. That was just released in June of 2023, so this year. And then most recently, the second single, Sweet Revenge, was just released last month in August.
Today.
Well, by the time this airs.
Yeah, oh yeah. Right, yeah, sorry for interrupting. I was like, wait a minute.
No, I think we're just going to keep that. We got to keep it.
I like it.
I'm pleased to welcome Josh Humphries from Hotter Than June to the podcast. What's going on, Josh?
How's it going, Jake?
Good, yeah. So we are recording this literally the day this episode is, or the day... Recording this episode the day the single was released, Sweet Revenge.
Yeah.
But this probably...
I forgot it wasn't airing like now.
Right, yeah. I wish it was.
Right.
I wish it was. I wish I had the time to make it released on the same day. But I think this episode is actually being dropped on Labor Day.
Cool.
So this we were talking about before we started recording, a little backstory. I don't want to go into all the details because... And I'm sure we'll share some more stories eventually, but this episode is about, you and Hotter Than June, not about, me and how we know each other. But real quick, I used to play in a band called The Projection in the 2000s, along with Hotter Than June. Mm-hmm. And then my brother Josh played in a band called Feature Presentation. And so Hotter Than June, Feature Presentation, and The Projection, we all played shows together throughout the Kankakee County area. And that's how we know each other. And we haven't seen each other. You and I haven't seen each other in at least 15
years, yeah.
15 to 18 to 16, somewhere in their years. So it's really wild to sit back down with you and kind of get transported back.
Back in time.
And especially since Hotter Than June is back together after all those years of being separated. So that's the quick version of that. And I'm sure we're going to, like I said, get into sharing some stories.
Your facial expression when you saw me in the parking lot was priceless.
You haven't even aged either. I feel like I look so different and you look the same. It's incredible. It just, getting ready for this interview and diving into Hotter Than June's catalog on Spotify this morning, it just transported me back in time. And some of the songs from that first EP I remembered, and it like I said, all these live shows of you playing these songs live, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that song. And I remember singing along to it at Hidden Cove and all of those things. And just between, because Feature Presentation, my brother's band, and Hotter Than June for a little while shared members. Yeah. Or kind of, Matt, who is not here, but Matt Monfordini, I think he started in FP and then he eventually went to Hotter Than June.
I think he was actually in Nice Girls Don't Explode, which was pre-Hotter Than June.
Okay.
So I wasn't in that band yet, but all those guys were together. And then I think if I got the timeline right, I think then he went to FP. And then I think he came back to Hotter Than June. So,
I feel like there was one point though he was in both bands, right?
He may have been.
It was he was allowed to be in both or whatever. Because when I think he was playing bass in Feature Presentation, but then he's playing guitar in Hotter Than June.
And we shared a lot of shows together, FP and Feature Presentation, sorry.
Right.
Feature Presentation and Hotter Than June used to play a lot of shows together.
Yes.
So,
As well as The Projection. We all played a lot of shows together. And I think there's even a while where Hotter Than June and Feature Presentation were sharing practice space, I think, too. Wasn't there?
I don't remember if Feature Presentation ever shared that space with us, but our space was the one that was in Kankakee and
Was it on a hobby? Or am I thinking of someone else?
Maybe, and then it had like a bunch of locked doors that you had to like enter to get into. And
yeah.
May have been Hobby.
I might have been. There was a spot for a while on Hobby Avenue in Kankakee that was like a practice space for a lot of the local bands.
That was probably ours, yeah.
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 But
yeah, we had it for several months.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe years. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's been a long time ago. I'm just so excited to see you because it was a really good time in my life. And I know it was a great time in your life. Yeah. And now that you've kind of resurrected a piece of it.
Sure.
It's exciting.
That's a good way to put it.
It's exciting to see that back. So obviously, I don't know the origin story of Hotter Than June. I just remember we started playing shows together. I don't remember like how the band came together. I do remember it was around 2005, right? Or
Sounds
was it
right.
before then?
Sounds right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did Hotter Than June come together, and who were the members at the time?
Yeah. So great question. So I knew Sean, which is Brandon's brother. And we were friends, and somehow, some way I heard about a show that Nice Girls Don't Explode was playing in Ashcombe, I think it was. And they were like, and Sean was like, yeah, you should come check out my brother's band. And I was like, cool. I wasn't in a band or anything at the time. Had been in bands previously, but not at this particular time.
What bands were you in?
Bands that were from like the Bloomington Normal area, that most people have never heard of. Like we went by Parkside. The same band changed our name to Blue Morning at one point with a OU in there, morning, you know.
Okay, nice. Yeah, yeah.
And then I was in a band called Big Soapy Spheres once, which stood for like bubbles, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I love that.
Yeah, we put out an EP together. I don't know. I was in a lot of different bands. I started writing music probably when I picked up a guitar when I was like 12.
Okay.
So I was always in and out of bands, you know.
Same. Yeah. I was right around the age I started.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so then Sean was like, come check out my brother's band. So we went to Ashcombe. I listened to them, and I was like, yeah, they're a cool band, you know. And then I had written a song in my garage at the time. I was living in Bradley. And because I wasn't in a band, I was like, I need a drummer. This song needs a drummer. So I was like, hey, like, can you hook me up with your brother's number or something? And got Brandon's number. I said, hey, I'm going to go record this, but I need a drummer. Would you come with me? And he's like, yeah, sure. So, because I had met him after the show in Ashcombe. And then we went to Eclipse Studios in Normal, which is still there. And that's actually where we recorded both of our EPs. And we recorded a song called Between the Lines, and it was just me and Brandon, you know what I mean? Nobody else from the band or whatever. And the way I heard the story, I don't know how it actually went down after that, but the way I heard the story was that he then went back and showed all the guys in Nice Girls Don't Explode, and then they said, like, we want him to be our singer or something along those lines. So then I was like, okay. And Kyle Follensby was in the band at the time. I don't know if you remember Kyle at all.
But maybe if I saw his face.
He was Nice Girls singer at the time.
Okay. I'm trying to remember if I ever saw them perform, and I just can't remember.
Right.
If I did, it was probably once, and there's no memories of that.
I thought it was so long ago.
It was a long time ago,
lifetime ago.
There are even some bands that I only saw one time, but I remember it. Sure. I just don't remember them.
Yeah.
Seeing them perform.
Yep. So they... So then I was like, yeah, I'll join the band or whatever. But I've always been like, I don't enjoy playing cover songs. I never have, you know. There's a lot more money in that.
Right. Well, but that was the whole point of our scene. And
right.
Like we idolized these big mainstream stars, or even the stars that were more in the underground. We're like, we want to be like them,
right.
and write our own songs.
Exactly.
You know, that was the whole point.
Exactly.
So
I was like, so it was kind of the same thing for me as I was like, I can't play you guys' songs though. You know what I mean? Like if you want me to be your singer or whatever, that's fine, but we're going to have to start from scratch. We're going to have to write all new songs, change our band name, everything.
So you came in there and you're like, listen, I'm not doing anyone else's stuff.
I mean, pretty much. It sounds bad, but like it was just kind of like if,
I get it.
It's kind of like if not comparing ourselves to like Guns N' Roses or whatever, but but it's like okay, if Guns N' Roses had a band and they were like, hey, we're still going to be Guns N' Roses, but we're going to hire another singer to come in, which they did do later on. But I'm just saying, like, it's just. It'd be hard to be. It's like no, Guns N' Roses is Axl Rose. I'm sorry, you know what I mean? Like, yes. Like it's hard to do that. I think and I was like, well, these aren't my lyrics. Like I can't identify with them, kind of thing. Because I write a lot of songs about my life, you know what I mean, and stories that things that have happened to me or events that have taken place in my life. So it was like I can't identify. Same thing with a cover song. I don't really enjoy playing cover songs because I didn't write it. I can't. You can relate. Sure, you can relate and you can interpret it however you want to, but I just couldn't do it. So they were all on board with it. They were cool with it. So apparently Nice Girls Don't Explode, that band name came from a game of Balderdash, I think.
What's Balderdash?
Yeah, I don't know. I've never played it. But that's what I'm told.
Luke, do you know?
There's a made up word and you have to convince everybody that it's real.
Okay.
Is that like literally the game?
Yeah, so it's like there's one fake word and a bunch of real words, I think. And then like you have to sell the fake word as a real word.
Yeah. That sounds like a game I would really be horrible at. Thank you for that, Luke.
Yeah. So apparently Nice Girls Don't Explode is actually like a movie from the 80s or something.
Oh, okay.
So then that's where that name came from. And then I guess the guys took the same method for Hotter Than June. And there was a movie, I think, called Hot Enough for June or something. So then that's where that band name came from, too, was Hotter Than June. And yeah.
Okay. So go ahead.
The rest is history. I mean, that's so that's how the band kind of formed.
And was Matt Monfordini in the band at the time? Or did he join later?
He was in.
I'm trying to remember.
From what I'm told, and this is why.
Because you don't remember.
The other guys were here.
I know. I wish, Matt or even Brandon was here.
Because they'd be able to fill in the details. But I think what happened was Matt was in Nice Girls Don't Explode. And they may have even recorded like their EP or album or something with Matt. I think Matt played on that. And he may have even been at the show that I was at, that I saw them at.
Yeah.
But then I think maybe he went to FP at that time to feature.
That must have been, must have been how it went. He went to feature presentation first. He played lead guitar for feature, then came to Hotter Than June.
Yeah.
And then he ended up back in feature presentation, but he played bass in feature instead of playing lead guitar.
Yeah.
I think my memory serves me well. Matt.
That sounds good. We'll go with that.
Yeah, not that it really matters. I was just curious.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think that sounds right. But
yeah. Because Matt is like a big brother to me since he was in my brother's band.
Sure.
I hung out with Matt all the time, because they were always at our house.
Yeah.
Playing, and then all the shows playing together. So then it must have been around that time. Wait, do you remember Hotter Than June's first show? Where was Hotter Than June's first show?
I don't know.
Was it one of those? It
had to be at like.
You don't remember your first show?
No, it had to be at Hidden Cove, probably. I'm guessing. Yeah. I don't know, because we played a lot of shows at Hidden Cove. Wasn't there like a Moon Monkey coffee house or something?
Moon Monkey was around at that time.
I think we played like acoustic there maybe a couple times.
Yeah, those were mostly acoustic shows.
There was
sometimes
some place downtown too that was like real narrow and brick walls, and it was like right around where we are right now. I can't remember what it's called.
Well, there was a place called Feed, but I think that came later after we were all gone. Oh, I know a place we played that was not far from where we're at now in Kankakee, and that was the Whatever.
Yeah.
Bar, which I don't know.
I used to book shows there.
You used to book shows there. I remember that because we played a couple with you guys, and I don't know what the Whatever is called now, but it was the Whatever. It was plush. It was 360 North or something like that. It's been various names over the years.
So it's funny that you bring up the Whatever because that actually has something to do with kind of how we got back together in June of 2022.
No way.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess since we're getting on that, let's talk about that. What brought about hold on. What brought about the disband?
The disband.
Yeah, because, as I was going through the catalog this morning, that second EP you guys put out, I don't really remember that EP at all. Yeah. But as I was listening to it this morning, I'm like, wow. I was like, this is really good. And it's so much better than Leave All the Pretty Things Alone. Backseat Classic is what I'm talking about, of course. But I really liked Backseat Classic listening to it this morning. But what brought about the end? I didn't realize it was 2008, right around the same time Feature Presentation broke up. It was right around that time too.
Yeah, so I think there was a lot of things involved. Like I had got divorced at the time, and like I was looking for jobs back in Bloomington, which is where I was initially from. So I moved back down to Bloomington, which is obviously a big thing. Technology wasn't what it was then, like it is today.
We had these things called sidekicks, sidekick phones. Remember those?
Those were, that's when we had flip phones, and you could push the keyboard out.
Yeah,
and type
that's
on
what
it.
the sidekick
right,
was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, my brother had one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, we didn't have, I don't think Facebook was a big, huge thing. Maybe that was only for colleges at the time. We had MySpaces. Both of us had MySpaces.
And if you wanted to make a phone call more than an hour long, you had to wait until after 9 o'clock at night, and then it was free. You remember that? The wireless services would offer that. Like, I don't know if it was Verizon or AT&T or whoever it was at the time, but I remember they would offer like unlimited phone calls or text messages after like 9 o'clock at night,
right?
Or something absurd like that.
Yeah,
anyway.
No, it was just a different world back then, technologically. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like, okay, well, I'm moving away. How's that going to work with shows? How's that? You know what I mean? And then again, my memory could be wrong, but this is how I remember it went down.
And I do remember the whole moving to Bloomington thing. I forgot that you were married at the time.
Yep.
I do remember you having a child at the time, but I forgot about the married part. So
I got divorced. I moved to Bloomington. So that was definitely a big part of it. The other thing that I remember is that I think, I could be wrong, so I'll have to see if they correct me on this. But I think what happened was we were supposed to play a Battle of the Bands in Bloomington. And the grand prize winner got like $5,000 worth of recording time or something like that. At the studio.
Pretty nice.
At the studio that we recorded our EPs at. Eclipse, yeah.
Okay.
With Eric Nelson down in Normal. And so I think we had the show planned and everything, and we were supposed to play it. And if I recall, Anthony had to like work. Like he couldn't make it because he had to work or something. And like
Anthony was a bass player or no?
Yes, and screamer.
And screamer, yes. Okay.
Yep. And so anyway, he had to cancel because he had to work or whatever. And I'm like, man, we don't have time to get like, because Anthony didn't just play bass, he also screamed, which is like back then that was a big deal. We needed our screamer. You know what I mean? Like we
post-hardcore, man.
We could find maybe another bass player to fill in, but we got to find a bass player that screams. You know what I mean?
Screams, man.
So anyway, so we didn't end up making the Battle of Bands. And back then, we were actually trying to make it and be famous and da-da-da-da-da.
That's what we were all trying to do.
Oh, yeah. So like I was upset from, you know what I mean? And I think that was kind of like, I was also younger and more immature and like didn't know how to process emotions. So I think in my mind at the time, I was like, well, what are we doing? You know what I mean? Like our whole goal is to like make it, and this is a huge opportunity. And anyway,
you were the only member that, I mean, you had a daughter, you were married,
right,
and then going through a divorce.
Right.
I feel like, so that kind of put for you were like, okay, I can't mess around. I really need to make this happen, because I got these things going on.
Right.
And, if I'm going to be putting my time into this band, it really has to be worthwhile. So you probably more than the other guys were like, hey, we need to take this seriously.
Because I think they were living with their parents probably at the time.
Right.
And
that's what I mean.
They're only a couple years younger than me, but I had... Yeah.
But you had made different advances or different choices in your life to where it put you in a different position.
Correct.
A different
That's fair to
different
say.
mindset. It wasn't necessarily an age gap or anything like that. It was just your
different period
circumstances.
Of life. Exactly.
Yeah.
I found out later that one of the guys who was judging the Battle of the Bands was Eric Nelson, who had recorded us. And again, if my memory serves me correctly, it's been wrong before, but I'm pretty sure I had talked to Eric after the Battle of the Bands, and he was like, dude, you guys would have won hands down. And so then that was just kind of like salt in the wound, you know what I mean? Like, what? No. But yeah. So I think it was the culmination of all of that together. It wasn't one thing, you know what I mean?
I probably would have cried. Because in my band, I was in the same boat. Like I was that member too. That was, so
yeah.
I feel you on that. I would have been pretty upset about that.
Yeah.
So then that was pretty much the demise. And then what brought back all these years later was that I mean, I know there had to have been some communication over the years between some of you.
Yeah.
Right?
So I got remarried in 2010. So we broke up in 2008. I got remarried in 2010. And I remember Brandon came to my wedding. Cam came to my wedding. Matt did not. Anthony did not. And then they were both, Matt and Cam were both at my bachelor party too. And like, we had a good time. I for some reason remember an argument happening on the bachelor party
about the band.
I probably, you know what I mean. And then drinks were involved, So
well, and it was only a couple years ago
right.
that whole Battle of the Bands thing happened, so it was still kind of fresh.
Yeah. So anyway, so then like there were texts exchanged over the years, but nothing like regular, you know what I mean, like random, like maybe once a year or something, like. And I still like wrote songs, but we're talking 15 years. You know what I mean? Like there was a 15-year gap or a 14 or 15-year gap between 2008 and 2022. If somebody could do math real quick, I don't know.
I don't want to do it because I'm really horrible at
18,
math.
19, 20, 21, 22. Yeah, 14 years.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a 14-year gap when we got back together because we got back together in June of 2022. And like I said, there wasn't really like a lot of communication or friendship or anything. Not maybe with them, but not with me and them. You know what I mean?
Because everyone else was still living in the Kankakee area, right?
Yep.
Even I couldn't, because Anthony and Cam were still around. Obviously, Matt is still around here.
Yep, and Brandon.
Brandon.
Yep.
Yes.
So they're all still here, have been this whole time. And I still wrote songs during those 14 years. But I never did anything with them. And like, as a songwriter, like you are your own worst enemy, right? So I would write a song and I would be halfway done or 3/4 of the way done or whatever. And I would be like, man, this sucks. You know what I mean? And I would like, sometimes I would take a piece of paper and I would just throw it away. You know what I mean?
Gosh, I feel that too. Oh man.
Yeah.
That hurts.
Yeah.
I feel that.
So I just... Self-doubt is real huge. You are your own worst enemy type thing. You are your own worst critic. I'm like, this sucks. This is cheesy. This is cliche. This sounds like something else. Whatever. A whole bunch of things would come into my mind. And I also have ADHD, so I'm like, it's just hard to complete a task. So I realized during those 14 years, like, we were better together. You know what I mean? In spite of our differences or whatever happened, like, because I don't think any of them ever did anything musically either after we broke up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I realized, like, we're better together. Like, they helped with my self-critical, nature and throwing away things that were probably actually pretty good.
Well, they probably helped you finish those things originally.
Yes, and they helped me finish them. Correct. So but they would be like, I would be like, this sucks. And they'd be like, dude, this is awesome. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
what are you talking about, dude?
Yeah, right.
Like, all you got to do is finish this part and it'll be great.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, so then how we got back together was around June of 2022. The whatever story comes back into play.
Okay. Yeah, so how does the whatever
Yeah, so there was a
tie
group
into
text
this?
that Matt started. And he was like, he had sent like pictures of the whatever or whatever. And he's like, do you remember this stage? And I'm like, because it was like a checkered stage or something.
It was very tiny, too.
Tiny stage, yeah. But I think it was like black and white checkered or something.
Yeah.
Something like that. It's something very memorable about it. And I was like, no, my memory's bad. I'm like, no, I have no recollection of that stage. Just like you asked, what was your first? I have no idea.
Yeah.
But so then I was like, what is it? And then he was like, dude, you used to book shows there. And I'm like, oh.
You're like, oh, the whatever.
Yeah. So then, we are all in a group text now. And like we would text randomly about things that popped up in our Facebook feed or whatever, and we would send it like that, like the whatever.
whatever. Yeah, that's probably why it was called that. Yeah.
And anyway, I just decided at one point, like, I owed everybody an apology. I was a huge jerk back then. And you know, I was going through a lot of stuff in my life during that period of time, but it was still no excuse for it. I was a jerk to a lot of people, not just them, but to a lot of people. And I just felt like I needed to apologize. So and again, no idea necessarily that the band was going to get back together. And I just said, I'm sorry. And then it's funny because then I remember everybody else was like, hey, I'm sorry too. I was a jerk. I said a lot of things whatever.
It's a domino effect.
Yeah. So it was just kind of like, okay, everybody just now said their apologies. And then I think I threw out the idea of, you know, the thing we loved the most about being Hotter Than June wasn't playing shows. While that was fun, and we enjoyed meeting other bands and like meeting fans and seeing people sing our songs, you know, that was like my favorite part.
That was my favorite part. But,
yeah, like
you know.
Looking out into an audience, especially of an audience like you don't know any of these people and they're singing your lyrics and you're not even like a big band.
Yes.
That was so cool. You know, like, wow, this is I wrote this in my bedroom or my basement or whatever, and these people are singing those songs. This is phenomenal. As cool as all that was, what we loved the most was writing, recording, creating together, you know? So I said, hey, man, with technology the way that it is today, we could all write and record music and release music from the comfort of our own homes. We don't have to have band practice. We don't have to play shows. You know what I mean?
Well, and playing shows isn't not to sound like an old man, but it's not playing shows is still important in music or anything, but it's not as important as like having an online presence, you know? So I feel like that has changed a lot too.
Absolutely.
So, you know, it's more about that nowadays, I feel like, than the actual shows.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but just from what I see, you know.
Yeah, I mean, that feels right to me. Like,
yeah.
So then I started playing some open mics, you know what I mean? Just because I was like, well, I haven't played a show in 15 years, 14 years, whatever it is. So I started playing a couple open mics, and you get like 15 minutes or 3 songs or whatever. And I had never even done an open mic before, so that was all new. And then I was like, oh, you know, I think I could do a full acoustic show. So I've got a full acoustic show of our material that I'm going to do on September the 2nd. So
okay,
yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah,
down in Bloomington.
Yeah, it's at the Station Saloon is what it's called. But
okay,
but yeah, playing with my friend Marcos Mendez, and you know, because I played one open mic, and there was a guy who apparently books shows in the audience, and he's like, what would it take, you know, to get you guys back together to play a full band show? And I said, you couldn't afford it. I'm like, come on. I think my actual response was, there's not enough money in the world to pull those guys out of retirement. Although I didn't say guys, I said something else. And then he and I just kind of laughed. No, exactly. I mean,
you know,
I just, you know, they as far as I know, they have no interest in playing shows, which is totally fine. That's why I started to play the open mics and everything. Cause that was the original agreement. It was like, hey, we're not going to play shows. We are just going to write and record, create. That's it.
Okay.
So it's not like I would be like now, like, hey, what do you mean you're not going to play shows? Like, that was part of the original agreement. So. Yeah.
I don't know, man. On my way to the studio this morning, I was thinking about it. I was like, what if we did a reunion show with a bunch of us? You know,
it would be a ton of fun.
I mean,
I would play acoustic.
No, I wouldn't settle for that. This would be
full band, huh?
Full band or nothing, man.
Yeah,
you know. Yeah. But you know, it's nice to think about those things, but whether it'll actually happen or not is another story. But just the thought of it makes me happy.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everybody now has families and kids, and
exactly, it's totally different, but it would still be fun, even just for the bands.
It would be. I've thought about it
to have a reunion.
I've thought about it too.
You know,
it would be a blast.
Yeah, it definitely would. We'd have to. Yeah, we could figure that out if and when. But it's still cool that you guys are getting that you're back together, at least releasing new music.
Yeah,
I mean, and Glasswater Pill Swallow being the first single and Sweet Revenge being the most recent, coming out today as we're recording this episode. Both songs very different too.
Yeah.
And you guys have definitely, you're still in the alternative rock vein, but I feel like it's definitely a different vein than original Hotter Than June was. Like original Hotter Than June was more on like the post-hardcore screamo end of things, because I mean that's what in the 2000s, that's what the rock genres that we were listening to or idolizing, that's what it was. And then like Sweet Revenge in particular kind of reminds me more of like modern day alternative, more along the lines of Imagine Dragons or 21 Pilots, or having those more of the modern influences.
Those are those are the two of the bands we were like, yeah, this song kind of reminds me.
Right, that's what I mean. It's you've kind of brought it into more, I guess, modern day sound with it. But yeah, getting back these two new singles and what you're writing now is some of this old material, and you guys just revisited it, or
exactly, yeah. So Glasswater Pill Swallow, that song, that's our first single. How that one started was, I assume that's what you're asking me.
Yes, yep.
How that one started was I was flipping through a notebook, an old notebook of mine. My wife, years ago, she took all my scratch papers of lyrics or whatever, and she started like transcribing them into a notebook or whatever for me, and I was like, oh, that's really nice of her, And anyway, I was flipping through one of those old notebooks just when we first got back together, and I was like looking for something, didn't know what it was. I was just flipping, and I saw the words Glasswater Pill Swallow on a page that I had written, and it looked like it was supposed to be a rap, like which I don't rap, but it looked like it was supposed to be a rap, and I'm like, oh, the rest of it sucks, but that line is kind of cool. I like that. You know what I mean?
I mean, it sounds right straight out of the 2000s. It sounds very emo scene.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I started writing. Nirvana has always been probably my favorite band of all time. So I started writing the initial 4 chords that were very similar but different to Smells Like Teen Spirit, right? And then I was like, I just developed the song. And the way all of our new stuff works is that I always tell people this. They say, what's your process? Like, do you write all the songs? And the answer to that is kinda, but not really. You know what I mean? Like, I tell them I build the frame of the house, and then Anthony, Cam, Matt, Brandon turned it into a home. So they put the drywall up, the insulation, the furnishings, they make it livable. And that's what goes back to what I said earlier, where I can't finish a song by myself. You know what I mean? So do I write the songs? No. I mean, I said kind of a minute ago, but no, I don't write the songs. I write the frame. I write the basis of it, and they're the ones who complete it. You know what I mean? And make it into a song that we can then release onto Spotify. I couldn't do it by myself. No way. We really, it sounds silly, but we complete each other. We really do. Like, Hotter Than June does not exist without all 5 members,
Yeah.
So
it's a collaboration. It's a team effort.
Yeah.
And that's
100%.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what makes it so good.
Yeah. So Glasswater Pill Swallow was a new song, but it was based off of lyrics that I had written in a notebook 15 years ago. You know what I mean? Now, Sweet Revenge is a old song. So Sweet Revenge was a song that I had written, 15, 16, 17 years ago, maybe even. And I had that first verse forever. And I just kind of like had it sitting on a shelf. I may have even like shown it to the band when we were a band still and said, hey, like, check this out. We never did anything with it. And it just kind of sat. And then my friend Zach Lindley, who is also a musician, he's a country artist that lives in Texas now. But he used to live here in Illinois. After Hotter Than June broke up, him and I like would kind of experiment with some stuff or whatever. And it was still called Sweet Revenge, but the chorus was totally different than it is now. And I don't even know if we had a second verse, But he actually, I would say, Sweet Revenge. And like, so Zach, when he recorded it, he actually titled it Sweet, like SAWEET, you know?
Sweet.
So we always joked about that. But so that song, like I said, is really old. And then when we were looking for new material, I was like, well, what about this? I sent it to him. There's the version like me and Zach recorded or whatever. And I don't think any of them really were like, yeah, this is a good one, because the chorus was just, it wasn't catchy. It wasn't, the verses were really cool. People liked the verses. They liked the lyrics. So then I just sat down with my acoustic guitar and I like revamped the chorus, and then I sent it to them, and then they were like, yeah, this is something we can work with. And then it just evolved, you know what I mean? And it turned into like this kind of pop rock, you know, thing that it turned into. And it was never like that before. When I sent it to Zach, he was like, what is this?
Right. That's what I mean. It sounds like a different band, you know, than when you listen to the two previous EPs that were released in the 2000s. You know, it's totally a different. It sounds great, though. I'm not complaining about it. It was just different. I was like, oh, okay. It's like, I like this. You know, I like when bands release singles that differentiate from each other, or a whole album that has, you know, and I feel like Hotter Than June has always been like that. Even if you go back to your original releases, you have a variety of sounds. You know, you've got some ballads in there, some acoustic songs, and some, you know, and I love when bands do that with their songs, and every song is not just the same.
Sure.
They had to make sure each song stands out in its own way.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of my favorite things about our band is like, and I think that's what differentiates us a lot from the other bands of our era. Like you mentioned the post-hardcore, emo, screamo, like it's all very formulaic. Like a lot of the songs sounded the same. You could skip to the next song and it would be different, a different song, but it sounds very similar to the one before it. You know what I mean? And we're just all over the place. Whenever somebody asks us, they're like, well, what genre are you guys? We're like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you could just say rock.
Rock. I mean, that's what we say, rock.
And that's why
we're a rock band.
Right.
You know?
And that's why I say alternative rock. I mean,
because it covers so much.
It covers so much. It really does, you know, or even just saying rock, you know, because I mean, all, you know, post-hardcore or punk rock or grunge, and they're all subgenres of rock. Right. So, you know, so saying rock just covers the bases.
That's what we do. Yeah. That's what we say.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you are going to perform a song for us today. Right. And what song are we going to be blessed with?
Sweet Revenge.
We are going to do Sweet Revenge. Okay. I wasn't sure I can't remember what we talked about beforehand. If we talked about Sweet Revenge or another song, but
I thought I'd do that one, especially because it came out on the day we're recording this. So.
Yeah, absolutely. It only makes sense. Sure. So before we get into Sweet Revenge, which, again, by the time this is released, it's available everywhere, along with Glasswater Pill Swallow. And this is going to be on the full length whenever that debuts. Obviously, you guys are, you know, working on that whenever you can.
Sure.
I'm pushing for a actual live full band show for when that's released, by the way, and I will help you. I will help organize that show, and maybe I'll even open for you on that show. We can do it down here in Kankakee County, and maybe get some, you know, some of the former bands back together for that show.
It'd be fun.
But is there anything else Hotter Than June related that you want people to know about that you wanted to cover before you play?
You know, just the, it's so surreal to be back together, to be making music again. Like, even today on the way here, I was listening to Sweet Revenge in the van, you know, and I'm like, man, like again, the whole writing your song in the bedroom or the basement or whatever, and then seeing it go through all these different phases over all these years, and then now it's out there for the world to hear, you know. It's just such a cool thing. And again, like, I'm just so thankful for Anthony and for Brandon and Cam and Matt, and Anthony's huge shout out to him. He's doing all the mixing, mastering, producing. I
was wondering if you guys were doing that in-house.
Yeah,
or
he's doing all that. We did send Glasswater Pill Swallow to get mastered somewhere else in the UK, actually, but he did everything for Sweet Revenge. So
okay. That sounds great.
Yeah, so it's just super cool, you know, just to be back together, just be making music again.
Yeah.
And Yeah, can't wait for all the other singles and the album to come out and everybody to hear it.
And who knew that? I'm just glad that I'm involved in some shape or form. So I'm glad that you and Matt reached out to me to be on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
This is exciting for me, you know.
Sure.
So thank you for that. I really appreciate it.
Like I said, it is a blast from the past. Even just being across from you,
right?
We used to. Because you're younger than me.
Yes, yeah. I'm 7 years younger than you.
Okay, yeah. Because I remember you guys had FP doesn't lip sync or something.
So going back to Kankakee that we were talking about at the beginning. Yeah, so there was a rumor that was spread around about my brother's band Feature Presentation that apparently they lip sync. I don't know who it was. A kid approached me one day and said to me, he's like, I was probably wearing a Feature Presentation t-shirt.
Sure.
And he's like, Feature Presentation. And he's like, don't they lip sync? And so that started this whole thing. And so my brother and the rest of the members of Feature Presentation decided they were going to make t-shirts that said FP doesn't lip sync. And we all wore them at Kankakee. And these were just white.
I'm pretty sure they're white t-shirts with like a Sharpie, right?
No, it was white t-shirts, but it was some type of like spray paint.
Oh, okay.
So they used like a stencil.
Gotcha.
And then they spray painted the white shirts. And yeah, I remember, I think everyone in the projection, including myself, and I still got pictures from Kankakee from that show where I'm wearing that shirt and everyone else is wearing that shirt. And then there were like fans of Feature Presentation that were wearing them. And because I can't remember if they were just passing them out or if they were selling them, but regardless, it was great. And I remember that. That's one of the main things I remember from that day as well.
It was a good time.
Yeah,
good show.
It was a great time for sure. But yeah, anything. See, we could go on forever about stories like that, especially if Matt was here, because Matt has some great stories as well. I was kind of bummed he wasn't here to tell his story about how he got a concussion one time. And
was it when he was doing his?
Yeah, that wasn't when he was in Hotter Than June, but I'll save that for if and when he ever gets on the podcast.
Is that what it was from though? Him spinning his guitar around?
I think it was Ivan. The guitarist of Feature Presentation was spinning his guitar.
Oh, okay.
And the headstock, which is the top part of the guitar where it's got the tuners, the headstock, as Ivan was whipping his guitar around, he was very near Matt's head. So he whips the guitar, and the headstock just slashes right along Matt's head.
Wow.
And it just blood everywhere. And he got a concussion rock and roll, man. He got a concussion from it. That was why I was not there, but there's pictures, and I'm sure Matt still has the pictures from that show.
Unreal. That's crazy.
Yeah, but anyway, no, Josh, this has been so much fun, and I'm really glad that Hotter Than June has come back to life.
Yeah.
So it's very exciting. So yeah, we're gonna get all ready for Sweet Revenge right now, live acoustic performance.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
I hate the taste of sweet revenge. So make the case to all your friends. A saving face while I pretend. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. A dramatic account of dramatic events that led to the so-called tough love initiative. Skeptics and scholars, and even my father said it's what's best for now. Only time will tell. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. So make the case to all your friends. Saving face while I pretend. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. It's ironic how things worked out in the end. A life full of surprises that rarely make sense. A diagnosis and bottles of more medicine. Is it what's best for now? Only time will tell. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. So make the case to all your friends. Saving face while I pretend. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. It's bittersweet. So make the case to all your friends. Saving face while I pretend. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet. I hate the taste of sweet revenge. So make the case to all your friends. Saving face while I pretend. I hate the taste of sweet revenge.
Yay!
Awesome.
Awesome, man.
How was that? Was that good?